Alright, so in today's video, we will be looking at a historic storm that is currently moving through the country and is about to get worse from here on. We'll be covering a major snowstorm in the northern plains and surrounding regions, which could bring blizzard conditions at times. We could also be looking at a wild temperature gradient across the country that could also bring severe weather outbreaks to the southern side of the system, and even an ice storm would be possible with that. Let's get started in today's forecast. So to start off the forecast here, we do have a lot of alerts that are ongoing across the nation here. It does look like we have blizzard warnings for Wyoming, Dakotas, and western portions of Minnesota. A little bit of northwest Wisconsin also has blizzard warnings in effect. Blizzard warnings are also in effect for a good amount of the west coast mountains here. We also have them in effect for a lot of the Rockies, but also into Dakotas, northern Nebraska, northern Iowa, most of Wisconsin, and northern Michigan, but also a good chunk of South Dakota and Minnesota there. Some warnings are also in effect for northeast Iowa, only Wisconsin border, and some northern Michigan here, again in a very mesoscale area. Winter weather advisories also exist to the south of that, into Colorado, as well as central Nebraska, Iowa, for northern Illinois, and southern North Michigan counties near the border of Indiana, Ohio. Those advisories do extend into New York, Pennsylvania, and western portions of Massachusetts and Connecticut, with some watches remain in effect for UP and Michigan for now, but also for much of the Northeast, including New York State, around New Hampshire, and into southern Maine. We also have a windy area with wind advisory in effect for Ohio Valley and into the south central U.S. High wind warnings are also in effect for the southwest part of the country, with some red flag warnings on from the Texas Panhandle, West Texas, and surrounding regions. So now we're going to also begin to dive into our forecast. So we do have a severe weather threat we're going to be monitoring tomorrow. Osiris is in effect for central portions of Oklahoma, extending all the way into western portions of Illinois. Now, we do have a marginal terror risk extending from far northern Texas across eastern southern Oklahoma up into Missouri and western portions of Illinois for tomorrow. We also have a isolated hail risk in many of those same regions as the isolated terror risk. Again, this is an isolated hail risk as well. But our main threat for tomorrow, of course, is going to be that wind threat, with a slight risk for that extending from southern Oklahoma into northeast Oklahoma, as well as much of Missouri and into western portions of Illinois. A little the lower threat for the winds, but not even zero, does also exist for northern portions of Texas and into portions of central Illinois and western Indiana. So it's going to be a severe weather day to be looking out for in those specified regions tomorrow as well, especially for the Neptune winds, but tornadoes and large hail are both isolated threats with this activity as well. Alright, so when we're looking at our radar here, it does look like this storm will be really outflying tonight into Wednesday morning, but for now we do have a light snow band that is initiating right now from the northern Rockies, stretching into Dakota, especially South Dakota, and across portions of Minnesota, northern Iowa, and even across Wisconsin. This will be really moving through, really turning into a hell of an ice storm that would be coming from Illinois to the Illinois-Wisconsin border, and even across Lower Michigan and into the Northeast. And it does look like rainstorms will be primarily the case here, areas to the south otherwise, in the warm side sector. I think we do have that severe weather that we're going to be monitoring in certain portions of the country for tomorrow, during the day, and even into parts of the evening. So this storm it will be moving out though, but it does look like a second storm will try to develop, although this one will be probably notably weaker than the first one, that will be right behind this main system here. We'll be bringing another round of snow, maybe even some ice in the sun end. That will be moving through Thursday morning across up in the Midwest and the Great Lakes during the midday, and then moving into the Northeast region for the late afternoon and evening hours, and then Friday morning it will move completely out of the Northeast United States. And for now, it might be calm except for some off and off showers in the Ohio Valley and the South, maybe even another round of light snow for the Midwest during the early parts of the weekend. But other than that, we do look like there could be another storm system moving through the country Monday and into Tuesday, which would again bring the threat for severe storms, maybe in some rain with that, and even the potential for winter weather once again focused on the upper Great Lakes and into the Northeast. So now we're starting to look at some fine details of this upcoming storm though. Now, when will these storms fare that we're expecting to be severe across the central portion of the country? It does look like one round will try to develop across Illinois and surrounding areas during Wednesday morning that would move through the state, but that would be focusing on the severe weather threat. This will start with some storms to develop across Oklahoma at least, and central and eastern Oklahoma, maybe into far northern Texas during the late morning hours of Wednesday, and then it'll move through northern Arkansas and much of Missouri, especially across the southeast half during the day on Wednesday, yeah, and especially really kind of through lunchtime all the way up to 4 to 5 p.m. in the afternoon, depending on where you are in Missouri and whether or not you're even getting that. So here's like the northwest part of the state. We'll probably not be getting anything with this storm though, at least with the severe weather threat. These storms will then move into Illinois during the late afternoon and evening hours on Wednesday before kind of falling apart after that. So that's that with the severe weather threat. Now let me move on to even finer details of forecasts like the winter aspect. Okay, so we'll be looking at snowfall forecast here. GFS is showing a heavy band of snow from the Dakotas, Nebraska region across the western Great Lakes into northeast for this coming storm, with the heaviest snow band for southern Minnesota and central Wisconsin, with totals over a foot would be possible, according to this model. Now, going ahead to the NAM and the NAM 3 kilometer, it is showing those models are showing similar story here, although some of those heavy totals could back up a little bit into east South Dakota, although that generally is the same band location as what GFS is showing, with places getting over a foot, even locally possibly to 18 inches near the Twin Cities metro. Now, the National Weather Service blend is showing that same heavy swath of snowfall, although some regions could get up to 20 inches of snowfall. Like this would be coming through East South Dakota into portions of northern Wisconsin. Maybe even UP and Michigan could get a little bit of this action as well. What the Canadian models are showing here, though, is that this heavy snow band would also be coming through those same areas, although some of this could extend a little bit into extreme northern portions of Iowa near the Minnesota border there. But other than that, these models are generally saying southern Minnesota, east and South Dakota, and central northern Wisconsin would be getting the heaviest of the snow. Now, UK and Euro is actually lighter with the storm, at least for the snowfall amounts, with really not many placing at least a foot of snow, maybe except for the Minnesota-Wisconsin border in southern Minnesota there. But also, we could be seeing some of that in the western New York State. Other than that, generally 6 to 12 inches of snow will be forecast across the majority of the band, coming from South Dakota all the way into the northeast there. Also, what Euro is showing as well, although some of that snowfall could extend into northeast Pennsylvania, but at lighter amounts, about 1 to 4 inches. So what models are showing here for the ice accumulations, according to GFS here, we would have that narrow swath of ice. And again, this does look like it could unfortunately be a destructive ice storm. At least half-inch of ice would be seen across northern Illinois. Those are extreme northern portions of northeastern Indiana and northwestern Ohio, although close to the Michigan border. Some of these ice storm totals, at least of quarter inch, could also be seen across western New York State and northern Pennsylvania. But other than that, this model is generally showing the burst of the ice targeting southern Michigan with up to an inch of ice possible according to this model. Now, what do the other models say? It's kind of the same thing here. NAM is showing a heavy swath of ice, really bring on the burst of it across the Illinois-Wisconsin border, but that would also lead some destruction going on into southern Michigan, of course, with some of those lighter amounts of ice heading into central Iowa and also New York State and much of Pennsylvania, also extending into portions of the Northeast and New England states. Also in extreme northern portions of Indiana, Ohio, and southern Ontario could also get in on some of this ice as well, according to the NAM. National Weather Service's blend is showing a glaze of ice starting in eastern Nebraska, really picking up in central Iowa, and also along the Illinois-Wisconsin border, and even across southern North Michigan as well, with amounts up to half an inch possible. Some of those light amounts of glaze would also be possible in far northeastern Indiana and northwest Ohio. Also, some of those lighter amounts up to 10, maybe even to tenths of an inch, could be seen across the Northeast, including those same states as well. Now, what the arrow is showing here is it would again target the burst of the ice across southern North Michigan there, with up to an inch of ice forecast according to this model. But Illinois, Wisconsin would also be a target area for up to half an inch of ice, maybe even looking more than that. Southern Ontario and into western portions of New York State and northern Pennsylvania will also get in some of the heavy amounts up to half an inch as well. But that Northeast would generally see up to 3 to 4 tenths of an inch in some of those heavier spots. But other than that, generally a tenth to 3 tenths of an inch of ice would be expected across that region there. Whereas that do get ice. And eastern Iowa would also see up to maybe even half inch of ice near eastern Iowa. And then up to central and western Iowa, it would be more of a glaze up to 2 tenths of an inch. The Canadian model is probably the worst one yet, and I'm not going to buy this. But I'm just to say which areas would be targeted quite a small here. Coming from the middle of Iowa, Illinois, Wisconsin border, southern Michigan, which is again where the worst of it is, southern Ontario, especially near the coast of Lake Erie, but also into New York State and portions of Massachusetts for that heavy span of snow there. I mean ice. So for our temperature map here, it does look like the southern United States will be really warm on that southern side of the storm here, with 70s possible at night in some of the localized areas of Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia for Thursday morning. And then it does look like this one sector will try to move east. But again, we'll also be looking at some highs in the 80s, especially near the coast, but generally coming down to 70s, 60s in the Ohio Valley. And further north, such as areas like Missouri, Kansas, Oklahoma, mainly be stuck in the 60s and 70s on Wednesday. So it does look like this warm sector will really advance as far north as the East Coast, and even places like Pennsylvania and New Jersey could get in that warm sector. And it does look like this Arctic cold will try to keep itself in place for much of the week across northern plains with sub-zero highs likely, and lows could get as low as 10 to 20 below zero in some of those spots in the central northern plains. Really at its worst for Friday morning across the northern plains. Some areas could get up to 20 below, even lower than that in parts of the northern plains there. Northeast does not escape this cold, however. At least portions of northern Maine and surrounding areas could get as low as 20 to 30 below zero for the lows for Saturday morning. It does temporarily, at least for now, improve across the region here, but it does look like this warm-up will continue across certain portion of the country, at least and as well as much of the eastern half of the country as well, with those above normal temperatures remaining in place for the rest of February. But it does look like colder temperatures will try to prevail across the northern tier of the United States, remaining in the cold side systems. So that is it for today's forecast. I hope you enjoyed it. Please do consider hitting the subscribe button and sharing this with others if you found this forecast to be very useful and informational for any of your future plans during the next week or so. It's looking to be very active. Other than that, stay tuned for future updates. Have a good night, everyone. Stay safe.